All right, guys, welcome back. I'm back with these podcast recordings. It's gonna be a triple recording Sunday. I'm not sure if I'm gonna post this one late Sunday night, but you'll probably see one that probably just posted recently. One's supposed to post at 6 p.m. Pacific, and then this is gonna be the third one. So it's kind of in order. Like I specifically put those 6 p.m. one to post in the middle because this was the one that I said I was gonna post about discomfort and kind of working with discomfort with different sorts of techniques that people might be trying when you're trying to kind of work on like personal development or relationship development, or just kind of like goal setting, goal keeping in general, just to kind of get your life on track or keep things on track. And so this one is going to be the third part of that series. It'll either post late Sunday or Monday morning. I don't know which one. It depends if I'm going to edit this or not. So at the moment, I don't really know, but pretty much that's what we're talking about. So it's still going to be in the series that's called Deepening Relationships, but again, that series is about kind of deepening the relationship with yourself, kind of looking more at the details of things that are maybe going wrong or right in your own life, trying to kind of decipher what it is and figure out how to manage things that you don't like what you see, and then just kind of working with things in that way. But this can be kind of for our own selves or when we're with other people. And a lot of times people really have an interest in topics that impact their relationships with other people. But a lot of times it does help to do that kind of introspective work too. Like, it's not always the other people. It goes both ways. A lot of times it's like we have to know kind of what's going on with ourselves to kind of know how to do what we need to do with other people. Because there's so many variables. And that's why these recordings are kind of hard to put out, because they're a little bit like trying to explain something in theory that a lot of people don't often know how to start doing, or sit down and take the time to start looking at themselves, or even know where to start. Or, a lot of us haven't been trained in these things. And I pull a lot from a lot of religious backgrounds, not just my own, but just general religious and traditional, even indigenous background kind of practices, as well as from modern medicine a little bit, and holistic medicine a little bit, and then psychology is kind of more where I'm based, as far as where I spend most of my time and energy and learning is usually in the psychology realm of things. But there is this constant kind of battle and dilemma that a lot of people have. A lot of people, this is how life is for a lot of us. And I always say, myself included. A lot of these things that I record, it's myself included. A lot of times I'm giving tips or kind of insights into things I've kind of figured out. Does it make sense to people? I don't really know, because it's hard for me to tell if I'm kind of making a lot of clear sense with what I'm saying. That's why I try to give examples, but I feel like sometimes the examples maybe aren't too on point as well. So I'm trying, but I mean, I hope that they're long enough and helpful enough that there's something in there that even if you can bring out like a little tidbit of something helpful for yourself just from listening to it, and then maybe like re-listening to it like at a different time, but just trying to see what you can find within the different categories of the things that I talk about. Try and look those up for yourself and see what you can find and what you can apply. Even if it's not the methods I talk about, I think a lot of times the overall experience, we all kind of have the same overall experience. Just, if I have tips that I put in, a lot of times those tips might not be someone else's preference to like apply that to their life in that way, which is fine, but I'm still just putting it out there because it's just kind of the way that I do things, or the way that I notice a lot of people do things. So yeah, with that, so what we're gonna talk about here is, with the topic of, discomfort. So what I mean in general when I say that is, a lot of times, think about the process that a lot of us have. You see this a lot during like the new year, right? People setting goals and making resolutions and being like, I really want to do this thing. I really want to see movement in my life in these areas. And usually the reason why they want that is for themselves, and then that would help them usually be better in other areas of their life as well. Like usually there's a thought process of, this will improve me, this will improve my own self, and this, when I find that improvement in my own life, it'll kind of trickle down or expand into other areas of my life too. So a lot of times people have very similar types of goals. There aren't that many people that I've ever heard of or seen that make goals that aren't for something more positive or more healthy or more fulfilling or more valuable, like improvements in their lives. I've never really seen people say like, oh, I want to get addicted to something so I can understand the struggle of like overcoming addiction to meth or like whatever. Like I've never seen people try to like make goals towards like damaging themselves. I mean, I'm not counting like, if you're working out or lifting or rock climbing or doing something that's gonna maybe tear muscles or, like the breakdown that leads to the building process. I'm talking about just full on unhealthy, just habits and practices. Like most people look towards what they think would be best for them. And I'm not just talking about like those kind of goals like, oh, I want to go to the gym every day, or which is great. I'm not saying that's not a good goal, but it can be physical health goals, spiritual goals, just kind of getting your life in order kind of goals. But there's the reason why a lot of times it's hard to get past a certain state is because of the discomfort. So it's a very subtle. It's very subtle. Like the difference between doing something and not doing something. So the energy that's attached to that discomfort, that uncomfortable energy, that is something that can be managed, and it's not the easiest thing to manage, but it's possible. And I'll talk more about that. But yeah, so if you notice that you have examples in your life of things that you're trying to do, trying to improve, trying to get better at, trying to be consistent with, trying to get any kind of motivation to even do. There's going to be this disconnect between what you know you should do for yourself, right? Like, we all know from a young age what we should be eating, what healthy, balanced eating looks like. For the most part, a lot of us learn about food groups and exercise and, cardio and different sorts of stuff that somewhere along the lines, a lot of the times our lifestyle takes over and a lot of those things get pushed to the side. And when it gets pushed to the side for long enough, it's hard to get back into it, for one. When it gets pushed to the side for long enough, it's easy to see things kind of deteriorating in our lives, and then trying to get the energy and motivation and momentum back to not only because now the baseline isn't in the same place. You're not working from, okay, every time I work out, I'm seeing improvement. Like, for example, I can say when I was younger, when I would exercise, it was like, kind of those exercises that you see, like, do 7-minute abs in like a week or whatever. Like, I was at a point of fitness when I was younger where those kind of exercise worked, because it was like I was already fit, I was already in shape, I was playing sports all the time, I was active all the time. I didn't really have money to go out buying all kinds of stuff and junk food, so I mostly ate food that was home cooked from like our home garden grown vegetables and like decently balanced food groups and stuff. Like, it wasn't like super healthy, but it was healthy enough in conjunction with my exercising and stuff, as part of like what I just did for fun. I was really involved in church and spiritual things and music, and like everything was like fairly balanced, but I still noticed, even when I look back, I still noticed there were areas where I struggled. Sleep was always a struggle, but because I had such a kind of, not really militant, but I was kind of part of a traditional lifestyle where it was like that would override any kind of way that I would feel or any energy that I had. Just the momentum in the household to just wake up on time, early in the morning, cook breakfast. Like, our family had like breakfast together. Like, we'd have like scrambled eggs, maybe sausages, cereal, tea, toast, like almost every day. We'd have like full on breakfast when we actually would eat together. And this would be early in the morning. Somebody would be responsible to wake up to cook it for that week or whatever. And we did that for a while. And then we also, studied really hard in school and were active in school and had activities after school and social stuff with our friends. And then Friday night, the whole Sabbath and Vespers and church on Saturdays and sports on Sundays. Like, everything was so regimented. There wasn't a lot of time to, like, even though I noticed where I was kind of struggling and not having an easy time in certain stuff, things eventually kind of just fell into place just because I was so consistent. I hardly remember taking any days off school. I hardly remember missing church, like hardly ever. I hardly remember like not playing sports, like skipping days and stuff like that. And my whole family was pretty involved in like everything all the time. So we kind of were very consistent with things for like years, probably up until about my first year of college or so. And so if you think about a lifestyle where it was just like forced balance, even though like maybe emotionally I was having struggles and maybe like there was a lot of stuff that was happening that wasn't getting dealt with on that end, but my physical health was fine, my fitness was fine, like as far as like what I ate, it was relatively all right. Just the psychological wasn't quite on point, honestly. Like, and I notice it now, and I know I do come from a generation where, like now mental health is a lot more of something that people speak about, but I think all of us elder millennials, we kind of have that kind of like half of our lives we spent kind of in the dark ages of like where people weren't really having those conversations yet. A lot of us born in the 80s or whatever grew up in the 90s when the internet was kind of coming into, homes and everything. Cell phones were kind of getting into the pockets of, people. When I was like in high school, like I was one of the only people I knew with like a cell phone in like my junior year of high school. But by college, most people had flip phones and stuff like that. And, once the iPhone came out, there was this huge boom. But we kind of come from a time before all that too, where it's like, kind of like the status quo was more like, it was different. You didn't see a lot of people with like talking about balanced living and like all the aspects that need to be considered. And I feel like our folks did the best with what they had, but it's like they came from a time even before that. So it's like, I was kind of lucky to be a part of a religion that promoted healthy lifestyle. I kind of knew what it looked like even when I wasn't fully doing it. I kind of knew what it looked like, but the part I didn't really know was the psychological part. I didn't know what that looked like as far as like what psychological health looked like. But when I look back, I'm like, oh, like, wow. Like I remember like I think it was like my junior year of high school, I would just come home and like sleep every day after class, like until maybe like dinner or so. And like I didn't identify that as anything. I was just like, oh, like I'm just really tired after school every day, and do nothing, and I just come home and sleep, and that was like fine for me. And I did that for like a school year. Nobody really said anything to me about it until I remember my senior year. I wrote a paper where it was like for my English class, and the English teacher was trying to get to know us. I remember writing this paper like, okay, this year is my last year of school in high school. I'm going to do different. And, this is my routine versus, when I kind of realized I didn't really like that routine. It wasn't fulfilling for me. I kind of knew maybe something was up, but I didn't really know what it was, or anything. So I didn't really know like what was going on. But I do remember, that it wasn't like easy, but also because I had enough structure in my life. Otherwise, it was like I still had to wake up and go to classes. I still had to wake up every day early and do what I needed to do. And there wasn't really like, oh, I'm gonna get in trouble or like any consequences. It was just like it's just what I did, regardless of how I felt. It's just what I did. And I do remember there were days where like I was pretty like almost late for class or a couple minutes late quite consistently. I mean, that's something that comes up too, where it's like when I notice that with work, when I'm like barely making it in at the buzzer, it's like maybe it's time to take a break, but I didn't really know what it looked like to be overwhelmed or needing breaks or needing to take like periods of time off. And we weren't being like ridden too hard about stuff, but it was pretty like, okay, the expectations are you get good grades, you get your work done, you turn your stuff in, you study, you don't prioritize parties and all this stuff, like you prioritize your career and studying. And in our household, like, that was normal. And I remember like having friends, like I remember once like one of my friends, like I think their apartment building or complex or whatever was like doing some maintenance on like their shower for like the weekend or something. So one of my family friends, her mom was gonna go stay with one of her friends, and so she arranged with my mom for my friend to kind of stay at our place. And I remember this was like a Saturday night, and the mom comes in. Our house is dead quiet. My brother's sitting in the living room, in the kitchen with the whole table with his papers spread out all over the place, studying. I'm in my bedroom just studying quietly with my door kind of cracked open because I knew my friend was coming. And we kind of gave her the living room to have her space. And we were just like, just bring your books, bring your study materials. Like, this is Saturday night. We study, this is what we do in our house. And we were very self-motivated too. Like, my parents really pushed education and pushed learning, and just, they purchased books for us and made sure we had transportation and made sure we, got our classes paid for on time and stuff. And like, they promoted an atmosphere where this is what we do. And we kind of fell in line with it because our goals were kind of on the same, value scale of like, we really do want to do this. We do want to care about, academics and learning, and we all valued it more than like being like entertained and partying. Like, I got way more out of learning stuff and like fulfilling like academic goals, more so than, going to like a friend's party or whatever. Like, that wasn't really too appealing for me at that time. And things were very attainable then too. Like, I was able to kind of just go through community college, get into a UC. Like, I don't think I had any like I wasn't like getting straight A's or anything, but I just kind of did the work for like consistently every day almost for years. And that paid off. But did I always feel like it? No. But I was so good at being consistent that it actually helped. So that's a long story. But the reason why I mention all that is because I noticed that I didn't really have the like emotional motivation always there, but I was able to do something action-wise, like that just got me to just start doing it, even if I didn't feel like it. And just keeping up that momentum for like years actually paid off. Now, did I end up where I thought I would in the way that I thought I would? No. I'm like swimming around over here just like, what is going on? But I'm still in a better off place than I would have been if I would have just been not so focused. Like, at least I have like the background to fall back on, or a lot of work experience and lab experience and experience in a lot of different aspects of the field, that if I wanted to or need to or had to go back and just switch and be like, okay, I have to go from clinical back into research now, I could do that. I'd have to brush up for sure and like study more and stuff, but I mean, a lot of it is self-motivation, being self-driven, but also the accountability. Because I notice at least for myself, I notice the more isolated I am in a goal, or the more isolated I am in like a project, it's really hard for me to care to do it. Because I'm like, okay, I'm just doing this. And if it's just for myself, and I feel like no one else is benefiting from this but myself, it's really kind of hard for me to kind of do things consistently. So things like, go run at the beach. Like, I have a good friend who runs at the beach every Sunday morning, and posts it online. He posts it with I've talked about this before, he posts it with the music, like with a song that usually has a sample from someone else, and it's kind of like a little project and like a continuing kind of interaction with his friends and followers on Instagram of like, people know, Sunday morning I wake up, I'm going to see that this guy posted, I'm going to try to guess the sample or whatever, like the original track that this came from, or what was being sampled, or who was the original artist, or whatever the, little trivia is for that song that he posts on his run photo or little run video clip, and people look forward to it, and that kind of helps him stay motivated. And that's kind of I'm kind of the same along those lines with like podcasts and stuff. It's like I get more motivated by like, okay, like if people like this topic or like that topic or find it useful, I'm way more interested in like learning more about it and like helping people to kind of improve their own experiences with it, and like explaining it and making little, like, I kind of consider these to be like almost like impromptu kind of casual tutorials almost, but it's kind of a lot of like food for thought, right? I ramble a lot, I go off topic a lot, I tell a lot of stories that sometimes it seems like it's related, and then I'm like, wait, where was I going with this? But I'm doing this on the fly too. But yeah, like when it comes to our general topic here of like the discomfort, you could probably even see that like when I talk about how I was kind of like growing up until my first year of college, it didn't, there may have been discomfort there, but there was a way to kind of override it to still do what I needed to do. And that kept things on track. Now, was it helpful that I wasn't able to tune into what was actually going on for me until I was older? No, that wasn't helpful. Was it... I mean, I didn't even have, like, knowledge or access to learning about really what it looks like when I'm not doing well. Like, or when I'm not, performing optimally, or when I'm not feeling good. Like, I recognized it, but I didn't really know what to do with it. Like, when I was slowing down mentally and everything kind of took so long to kind of like study, and I'd just be like sitting and staring and like daydreaming and spacing out. And like even in my really younger years in class, I would just space out in class and not really turn stuff in until I got a whole backlist due of like what was due. And then I'd have to sit for like a couple nights and basically just work at home and do everything. Like a lot of my elementary school days, I was basically self-taught because I wasn't really paying attention in class. And I basically waited till I got the list of basically everything due from like maybe like a 4 or 5 week period of time, or 6 weeks, or however long it was, of all the stuff I hadn't turned in and anything I had to redo because it had a low score. And that's how I passed all the way up to like 7th grade, pretty much, was just redoing things and working on my own pace at my own time. Now, I didn't have a lot of free time because of that, because like every few weeks I was like, now I got to spend like 3 or 4 days like just doing nothing but catching up on all this work. But I learned how to learn in my own style. I just never really easily learned how to learn in like a classroom setting until probably 7th or 8th grade. I kind of started realizing what other kids were doing. But I feel like I was pretty oblivious as a kid. Like I just kind of lived life and did my own thing, and like I was pretty oblivious to like how to do things. But so let's take, for example, one of the aspects of this discomfort, where it comes from, what it looks like. Let's kind of delve into that. I'm actually gonna take a break and actually eat dinner because it's like 6:12 p.m. And I want this to be a longer recording, so I'm actually gonna stop now, eat dinner, and then keep recording. Because I feel like I'll think better that way. Alright, so my break is over from stuffing my face. I had half of a veggie sandwich and half of a smoothie and a couple of the pieces of the fruit cup, the pineapple and watermelon. So I'm like, okay, that's enough. And save the other half of the smoothie and sandwich for tomorrow, probably for my lunch. Yeah, so that's a good time. But yeah, so talking about how our relationship with discomfort kind of predicts what it is that we do as far as, our plans and kind of what we are trying to improve for ourselves. Again, like this is a totally subtle type of situation that a lot of us face. So when I say discomfort, that mostly refers to discomfort on two different ends. So there's the discomfort of knowing that you want to do something and it's difficult for you to do it, to do what you need to do to make the changes if you're not seeing your your motivation improving or increasing, if you're not seeing the actions being played out in real life, if you're or maybe you're putting more energy into the thinking and the planning, but you're not actually executing any of it. There's a discomfort in all of that. And then there can be the discomfort in the actual implementation of whatever it is that you are actually doing, such as, any kind of new routine is going to be somewhat stressful. Even if you really like it, there's still the having to think and plan and get to the new site where you need to do it, or know the directions, or know what to do. And that's slightly stressful, anxiety provoking. Anything that goes outside of our routine of kind of automatically knowing what to do, where to go, where to park, how to get there, how long it's going to take. Like, once we get into that phase, usually it's easier. So even doing, when you're in the initial stages of like doing what you need to do, as well as the stages of any kind of discomfort that you experience while you're actually incorporating all that you're doing, there can be a discomfort there too, because if it's new, if you're learning new skills, like such as a sport, martial arts, rock climbing, going to the gym, learning about lifting weights, yoga poses, stuff like that, you're learning terminology, you're learning like this body-mind connection and muscle memory and stuff that you maybe have to kind of practice routinely so that your body and mind kind of automatically start doing it, right? And especially if you weren't raised athletic and you have athletic goals, or especially if you weren't raised like to do academic things and you have like these intellectual type of goals, whatever type of goals it is that you have that you're working on, if you don't have any background in it, just the process of learning and implementing new things is going to be a discomfort in itself. So we're constantly forced to kind of have to keep our mind very intentionally focused and positive to be able to get off the couch, get out of bed, get going, get moving, or open that computer and start typing, or turn on that mic and start recording, or, get your running shoes on and start stretching and put your clothes on and go do what you got to do. Just the process of, going from laying around, lounging around, thinking about, I should do it, I need to do this is what I want to do, versus actually performing it and doing it and starting to do it and doing it the right way. That's going to be hard, right? And a lot of people who have emotional goals, what this looks like is, that discomfort between, I don't really like the patterns I'm seeing when I'm not changing things that I want to do, but then there's kind of that fear of, what if I try to do this and it doesn't work out? Or what if I try to do this and it creates more of a problem? Like examples kind of from more like emotional based self-improvement kind of topics would be like, maybe like something simple, like if you're trying to practice being assertive in your work environment or school environment, and maybe you're not a boss or a director or in management at all, but maybe you have people that you're trying to interact with that you notice you need to kind of set boundaries with, or something along those lines. Or maybe you're trying to like be open emotionally and talk to them, but you find it hard. Like usually where that comes from is, when you're sitting around thinking about it, we always think about like the worst case scenario of what can possibly happen. So the discomfort of not doing it and having certain situations at work or school or whatever environment, if those patterns keep continuing, it's not going to be comfortable, right? There's a discomfort in that going on and on and on and on and being like, oh my gosh, I wish it would stop. But then when we do have some form of power or control to be able to do something about it, a lot of times we don't know, like, is it going to be worth the effort to put in to do it and then potentially see a result. You might see no result, and that'll leave you where you are already. You might see a worse result, and that will leave you probably regretting that you did anything. And ideally, you'd want to see an improvement from your efforts, right? People have this same problem when they have like a crush on somebody. A lot of times people are like, I don't want to tell them because, like how they might react. They might hurt my feelings. They might laugh at me. They might think I'm like some weird person, and they might not reciprocate or might go spread rumors and all this stuff. So people can get kind of like, okay, I want to tell this person how I feel about them, or I want to like involve them more in my life in these certain ways. But then also like when they're not doing it, they're like disappointed that, the other person doesn't seem to really know how they feel, and they're kind of friend zone them, and like they're like, I'm not really getting what I want out of this relationship because I want something more than just being buddies. So it's kind of like a whole damned if I do, damned if I don't. I think in all those types of scenarios, it's always that way. It's like we always notice there's a damned if I do, damned if I don't. So this might not sound very like a very intelligent way of thinking, but the way that one way, there's multiple ways, but one way you can kind of train your mind is to really look at, okay, what you see as the damned if I do, damned if I don't, which is this is me not doing any action. I know what I need to do. I know what it looks like. I know what I want to see change, but I'm doing nothing about it. So that's like damned if I don't. I haven't done anything, so I'm going to be screwed by not doing anything because I'm still not doing anything. So by not doing anything, I'm not seeing any results. And that gets frustrating, right? So you want to kind of see why it is that you don't want to put in the effort. Like, what is it that you are predicting is going to go wrong? What is it that you are predicting is negative? What are you predicting you're losing or not benefiting from by putting in the action, by putting in the work, by putting in the effort? What do you feel like is kind of taking away from you to actually start working on this stuff, right? And there can be a lot there. There's usually, I can't even go through the whole list of things that people could possibly think, but it can be a negative self-esteem. I don't think I can really do it, or kind of like trauma-based, from mild to like severe trauma, along the lines of, I tried it, I fucked up, I screwed up, I messed up and failed already, so why do it again? There was pain involved in that. Or, some circumstance happened that just ruined all the efforts that I had put in. Like maybe you're playing a sport, for example, and you get a severe injury, and now you can never play that sport again the way that you wanted to. Or maybe you get in a car accident or some kind of other type of accident that makes it so that all the efforts you put in to what you were doing, you can no longer do that at all, or in the same way that you wanted to, or in a way that's easy. Now you have this other barrier to have to work past just to get to do what you were already working on for so long. And there can also be the challenge of kind of like not being able to even sit with kind of what you think or feel about yourself or about your abilities, talking yourself out of it. But I would usually encourage people to, if you're not going to work on it and go work on the thing that you're trying to work on, then just sit and work with the stuff that you're not able to get past, because at least you're working on that part, with the potential that it'll eventually become easier for you to actually work on the other stuff and actually start putting some things into action. It might take a while, but the thing is, if people don't work on that initial process of kind of the damned if I don't, if we don't work on that, it comes up in other areas. It comes up in work, it comes up in school, it comes up in relationships, it comes up in a lot of things that, a lot of the things we might think about ourselves or tell ourselves negatively about our own abilities and strengths and ability to handle stuff. It's just us telling ourselves that. It's not really based in any actual facts or proof or truth. We just think that way because that's like we rely so heavily on our emotions and our thoughts as if it were 100% the truth. And the thing is, they're not always true. For example, you might be tired in the morning, because you might not have slept good. You might start your Monday and feel pretty sluggish and fatigued because Sunday night you didn't sleep too good. That's a real thing. Or you might wake up and start telling yourself, I don't want to go to work, I don't want to go to school, I don't want to do anything because I'm tired. But you might not be actually tired as far as like you didn't sleep enough. It might be something else. You might be depressed, you might be anxious, you might just really need a break. But even the way that we tell ourselves, I'm tired, it's like we're not always tired. I was kind of able to prove this to myself by using a smartwatch, and it has like this sleep tracking ability. And I noticed there were days when, it wasn't common, but there were days when I actually slept really well. And I would kind of wake up and I'd be like, before I even check the app, I'd be like, okay, like work on my breathing a bit and kind of see like gauge where I'm at. This is like 5:30 a.m. I don't work till 8. I'm like laying in bed still, just like, okay, I'm up. There's so much I can do before 8 o'clock in the morning. So much. A lot of the goals that I have are like intellectual things that I could literally just sit in my bed and do, like way back when I used to do drop shipping and be very involved with like the stock market and things like that. I would literally do this kind of stuff 5:30 in the morning my time. I'd start and do it before I had to start getting ready to go to work. And I would do this consistently for like a few years. I reached most of my goals in learning like extra stuff outside of work, or even exercising and things like that a little bit, doing yoga and things. I would do this before I even started work because I'm like, well, I'm up, and I was able to just do it. And I don't do it anymore, but I mean, I noticed there was that difference between feeling like I'm tired, telling myself that I'm tired, giving into that kind of, I'd rather just lay here and close my eyes and force myself to rest again. Feeling like I'm getting more, oftentimes we feel like we get more out of that process of not doing it. There's something that we're getting out of not doing it. There's something I'm getting out of sleeping in from 5:30 a.m. to 7:55 a.m. even if I slept perfectly fine the night before. That rest and checking out mentally and not having to like think or do anything or be productive feels a lot more valuable than working on the other stuff that I really do want to work on, or that I want to see the changes in, but I don't feel like the payoff is worth it. I don't feel like not getting extra rest is a good exchange for putting in, like, seeing some momentum and change in my other goal, right? I'm prioritizing this rest because it seems more valuable. But what happens is that rest becomes the barrier to, doing things. It can become more and more of a problem depending what I'm doing during that resting period. So if I'm not using that resting period in the morning, 5:30 a.m. to 7:55 a.m. to kind of think about, okay, what is it that I feel like I'm lacking, that I need to kind of strengthen, that I can do and lay here and still strengthen that while I'm, in the process of eventually going to be able to put in some action to see the results I want. If I'm just gonna, lay there and fall back to sleep, I'm never gonna see any progress, right? But I could see some other kind of progress if I start working on, mentally what's going on. Sometimes it helps to have writing prompts. I've made my own writing prompts before, which can still be surprising. Like, because sometimes I don't really know what it is that's happening. Like, you can always take the who, what, where, why, when type of stuff, or you can always do the peeling the onion type of stuff, where you're just kind of like asking yourself, what does that mean? Like I don't want to do this because I'm tired. What does that mean? What does it mean for me if I'm tired, and don't want to do this? Like, what does that say about myself? And then I answer that question, and then when I have that answer, what does that say about myself? Trying to get to the core of what it is that we think about ourselves, because usually there's some deep-rooted thing that we think about ourselves that is like leading us to not do anything. Because if we believed 110% that we could do whatever it was that we put our minds to, then we would not really have any type of thing slowing us down unless we were really tired or hungry, or like, you need the money and you're like stressed about that, or like there's something else coming up that's really actually getting in the way. A lot of times we are the ones getting in our own way and, prioritizing the relaxation. So we consider it relaxing. We're trying to get what we want immediately now. It's kind of like, instead of delaying the gratification, delaying the reward until, we've put in enough effort to be able to see the results. A lot of us humans are not good at that. That's a struggle. It's a struggle to not be able to get what I want this moment, right? So a lot of times what that looks like is taking a nap, sleeping in. That is going to be immediately more gratifying and rewarding than putting in some effort that's going to have an invisible result for now. And if I do the effort and put in the effort and still don't see a result in 1 week, that's a challenge. If I still don't see the results in 2 weeks, that's a challenge. Sometimes, a lot of times, we have to see it in our efforts. We have to see, when I did all those curls and push-ups and those workouts, I want to see my muscles popping the next day. I don't want to wait like a month, to see the definition. I want to see it right away, right? If I don't see it, I'm going to lose motivation. So one kind of way around that is when you start to actually do things, like once you've passed the phase of kind of delving into why it is that we're prioritizing the avoidance, whatever that avoidance looks like, if it's sleeping in, if it's playing video games, if it's doing just something else that's not actually actively working on the thing, and we're just kind of thinking about, oh, that would be nice if I had this result, but it would be nice to also implement this into my routine and put in the effort. It would be nice, but I'm still in the damned if I don't state. Like, I notice I'm damned if I don't. I notice if I don't do it, I'm not going to feel better. I'm not putting in the effort. I'm not going to see the results. I notice that doing nothing isn't helping, but then I still have the desire on the other end where it's like, I want it. But a lot of times we have to kind of mentally see it. Even if you don't see it in person, you have to be able to mentally see it. You have to be able to visualize. You have to get good at the process of visualization of, it's kind of like a daydream, imaginative state, I think a lot of people remember back to when you had like imaginary friends or like some imaginary world where you could play with like toys and dolls and all kinds of stuff, and like it didn't matter, you knew it wasn't real, but you were still having fun in the moment, and you were pretty motivated to do it because it was fun, right? And this is very similar. It sounds stupid, but you can literally kind of get into this daydream or almost like a playful kind of like imagine what it would be like kind of state of mind where you're just sitting there with every time after you work out, for example, and just being like, yeah, like what I'm feeling in my arms right now, what I'm feeling in my legs right now is that process of the development of these muscles that I want to actually visibly see. And I know it's going to come within this certain amount of time length, but it's going to be further out than I want. But being able to kind of visualize it helps. Kind of like, almost like it helps when you're a kid, you get entertained by kind of like visualizing and like pretending. Because it's not real. Like what you're visualizing at that moment isn't necessarily real at that second, but it's real enough to the mind that it kind of motivates you more than not doing that, because it does stay with part of your memory, what you're kind of imagining you'll look like, what you're imagining you're going to feel like, what you're imagining that relationship is going to kind of become. And again, like, it is part of your imagination, part of your just thinking and predicting, but it's a different style of predicting. It's not like a predicting, it's not like the damned if I do type of predicting, like, oh, if I do this, it's not going to be worth it in the end, or I'm just going to relapse or fall back into bad habits. Even if I do work out and get really fit, I'm still going to, eventually go through a period where I stop doing it, and then I'm going to gain weight, and then it's going to be harder to get that momentum again the next time around. If you're already like talking yourself out of it before you even start, that's a whole different thing than, visualizing how it actually is going to be, looking as like your life changing kind of actions. And I'd probably say the last way is just realizing the power of your mind. Something that I've mentioned to people that I think a lot of people might relate to if you go to the gym. I find the gym to be a very motivating place, just because you see other people working out. I don't know them, but like, whatever, who cares? At least it's like a community of people who kind of are in the same space for the same reasons. de-stressing, unwinding, working on your health. We're all here for like a positive kind of reason. Some people are probably in there to do a little bit of damage to themselves. It might be like a self-harm kind of thing, but I would say the majority of the people are there for healthy, positive reasons, right? But something I notice, even at the gym, is how, I kind of came across this realization of how your mental energy, how your the process of how you think and how you feel is kind of gonna impact what you do very subtly. I noticed this in a real way when I was at the gym. I would watch, I would stand, I'd be like on the elliptical, and then there's always TVs like on the wall. The way this place was, it's like there were TVs on the wall. And I remember having to actively avoid the ones that had news on there. Because I noticed I would work out and it would just be like, I'd look at the screen and it would be like, this person got murdered and this negative thing, and there'd be all these like headlines at the bottom, just like reading off like about wars and terror and tragedy all over the world, fires and floods and like earthquakes and like all this kind of negative stuff. And I'm over here trying to like keep myself mentally like prepared and mentally just like determined, and that would really demotivate me. I'd be like, damn, like here I am just trying to like work on this little workout. This seems like nothing major and the world's falling apart around me, and it got my head into this other negative space. So a lot of times it helps to really keep your head in a positive space without kind of slipping in to those terrible habits that we have of like just talking down at ourselves about stuff that we know we need to do. Easier said than done. But just paying attention to how much negative you might notice is happening. How much negativity is realistic, how much is very accurate, how much is likely versus unlikely. I mean, we somehow with certain topics are able to tell ourselves that we're so bad or so, gonna regret putting in the energy on this, putting in the effort on that, not gonna be able to do that or this. That's kind of how we would. Jeez, got distracted by somebody knocking on my door about somebody's Uber Eats delivery coming. And it's not mine, but anyways. So yeah, we're able to kind of tell ourselves and talk ourselves out of doing things that we feel like we are struggling to kind of do, that we don't see as easy, that we don't have a really positive view on ourselves of being able to do. But when we look at the rest of our lives and the rest of our days, it's like some stuff just kind of comes naturally, right? Like maybe not even like we're naturally good at it, but some stuff we just do. We wake up, We might make breakfast, coffee, whatever, food, eat. We might get out of the house on time every day, or just about. We might get where we need to on time every day, or just about. We might be successful in reaching other goals every day, doing what we need to do all the time, on a daily basis, on a regular basis, for our health, for entertainment, hanging out with friends, for leisure, relaxation. But then when it comes to this one thing that we're trying to do, for some reason we tell ourselves we're not equipped or good enough or strong enough or good enough to do it. And it's like, does that really make sense? When you think of it, it's like, I can get through this whole day. I've gotten this far in my education or career or life or with other goals. But then for some reason, I just can't do this one thing. There's this one thing that I just really will never be able to do. I mean, that doesn't add up, right? It's like, it doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't. It's like, we just tell ourselves that. It's something we tell ourselves because maybe we don't really have extra energy to put into something that's a maybe. We might not see what we want, but if we don't do anything, we're not going to see it either. So the gamble is hard. It feels like it's a gamble. So one way to avoid the gamble is to know what you're doing and make the most of all the time you spend doing it and all the effort and energy you put in to maximize getting the best results possible. Like with working out, you really have to focus on all the aspects, the form, everything, right? If it's not working out, or exercising, if it's something else, you have to focus on all the aspects, not just, okay, I put in the time, just like I was talking about at the beginning. It's not so much about putting in the time a little bit just to mark it off the day's calendar of your to-do list of like, oh, I did it today, I did it today, I did it tomorrow, I did it every day for like a week. It's the attention to detail that's gonna get you the results that you want. That's gonna maximize the effort that you're trying to put in. That's gonna make sure that, when the time is right for you to see any kind of result or improvement or movement, you're gonna start seeing it as soon as possible versus that part being delayed. Because if you're not doing it right, you're not gonna see it as soon or as strongly when it does kind of start revealing itself. When the efforts do start paying off, it's not going to be as prominent. So those are things to kind of keep in mind. But I really would focus strongly on kind of that last piece. Like, why do we think that we can't do certain things when we've done so many other things? That's kind of just this weird way of thinking of like that all of us do, but we always save it for something a lot of times that is going to take longer than just doing it one day, right? That's why some of us don't clean often. It's like, if I know I'm just going to mess the place up again and have to deal with that, it's going to be a lot more challenging than just straight up just doing it, or what, just cleaning once and maintaining a tidy environment. If I know I'm going to have to deal with this problem, but the reason why things become messy and get unmanageable or out of hand is because of another underlying issue. So it really helps to kind of know kind of what's underlying the hesitation. And it can be so many things, but once you kind of figure out what is underlying that. If it's a low self-esteem thing, if it's a trauma-based thing, kind of avoidance because of that, if it's really just you don't have the skills and you need to kind of like beef up your education about what it is that you're trying to actually do. If you need some accountability, something to keep you motivated, like with either posting it online or having an accountability friend, someone you can trust with whatever it is that you're doing. Like with some things, you don't really probably trust every single person it might be a more personal goal that you have that you're not trying to like post on the internet. But yeah, a lot of times we don't look at this stuff. We just start realize it's hard. And because it's hard, we're like, well, sucks that it's hard. I wish it wasn't. I don't really know why it's hard. I'm not even going to go there. We usually kind of don't even notice why something's difficult other than the surface of, I just don't feel like doing it even though I want to see this result. I mean, if you really want to see a result, there's a reason why you don't feel like doing it, right? Because with a lot of things, we want to see results and we don't avoid those. Sometimes I'm like, it's 1:30 p.m. I want to see the result of me not being hungry anymore. I want to feel like I ate a meal and be full. So I go get food and I fix the problem, right? I'm not going to sit on that for so long and say, I'm tired. It doesn't matter if I'm tired. I'm going to get food. I'm too lazy to kind of like even microwave something. It doesn't matter. Eventually, I'm going to override that laziness system because I'm hungry enough, I want to eat. I want to be full. I want to not feel hungry. The discomfort of not fulfilling, or not performing the duties I need to do to reach that result, it's not worth maintaining that, to feel hungry all day, and all night just because of laziness. It's like, I'm going to eventually resolve that, right? Same thing goes for pretty much anything, but we really do see this not just with the actions and trying to do certain things. We don't have a good what is it called? A good memory, a good accurate recollection of how we're doing things, what we're doing, what's working out, what goes well, what we're skilled at. For some reason, we kind of just tell ourselves, I'm not skilled at this. This is hard for me. I'd rather do that instead, even though I want to see this other result over there. And then for other things, it's not even an issue. Like eating lunch might never be an issue for you. Taking out the trash might never be an issue for you. Certain things that are issues for other people might never be an issue for you. So just kind of noticing kind of what it is. Like we do have a lot more control and strength over being able to reach goals, do what we want to do, see the results we want to see. It's just our minds are tricky, and it's good to kind of notice what it is that's happening mentally. I can't stress that enough. It's so important to find out what it is that's happening for you mentally, so that you can work with it and work on it and see the results that you want to see. But it's definitely possible. Like a lot of stuff I mentioned, like eating lunch, taking out the trash, that stuff is short term, but for some people it's not. For some people that can be a much bigger deal than it is for our own self. So just trying to put things into perspective and keep on reminding ourselves that, a lot of this stuff is in our head. A lot of it isn't accurate, truthful. It's just how we protect ourselves. It's like protective. Like, so I talked before about like ego, superego. I bring those up a lot because I did study kind of like ISTDP, where they talk a lot about, John Friedrichsen talks a lot about the superego telling us like unwelcomely inviting itself to tell us negative things about ourselves, and then the ego participating in these defenses, right? I mean, that's kind of exactly what happens. We have the superego that's telling us, the effort's not going to pay off. You're going to regret that you put in any effort instead of sleeping in all morning, until you actually needed to do something. Even though you're not tired, it doesn't matter. You're going to put in the effort. You're going to feel worse because it's not going to be too likely to work out, or you're not going to see the results you want, or even once you start seeing them, you're going to fall back or backslide or relapse, and you're going to be having a worse time getting over that disappointment in yourself, as well as working on trying to rebuild yourself again from scratch and feeling like crap about it, feeling like, oh, I screwed up, and not being able to get over that screw up. I mean, this is literally how our minds talk to us. It's just like, literally, it can be like, I'm just trying to walk around the block a couple times, and all that, the superego's got all that, just pushing it into the mind. And then the ego's defense is, well, I'm going to defend myself by avoiding. I'm not going to work even on, addressing the superego's negative messages. I'm not even going to work on it. I'm not even going to touch it. It's painful to touch that stuff. It's painful to work on that. And I'm going to also avoid what I need to do, as far as putting in the efforts. So I'm not going to walk around the block a couple times. I'm going to sit and I'm going to do nothing as a defense. But usually that nothing is going to be something that's more relaxing and pleasant in the moment. I'm going to do something to get pleasure, and, pleasure now. I need that pleasure now, right? I need the rest. I need to sleep in now. I need to eat junk food now, instead of do my healthy activities, instead of, do this emotional processing exercise, instead of do a journaling, instead of doing yoga, instead of doing this other thing that I'm really trying to implement into my life, instead of doing this introspective task, instead of doing this relationship building kind of task with my partner, I'm just not going to do it. Instead of working on my finances, I'm going to play video games. It's like, and then the more we do that, the easier it becomes to keep doing that. So, and then that becomes a problem in itself, that we feel like, okay, this pattern of not getting the result that I was looking for, this pattern is now hard to break because I'm so used to this pattern, and it becomes so ingrained and so automatic that it's hard to even deeply think into it. It's almost like it's kind of like, how when you get a tattoo, it's like there's a certain point where there's like superficial, kind of like if you just put your fingernail across your skin, or if you barely broke the skin, it's kind of superficial, versus like a tattoo that's like deeply in your skin. And tattoos fade, but say if you kept getting that tattoo retouched, eventually, it's going to be so deeply rooted into your skin that mark is going to be there, right? So it's almost the same. It's like we keep the same patterns going till it's like tattooed into our kind of like system, and so we have to kind of reverse that, and the reversal process can be pretty challenging because we get so used to thinking so negatively, and we don't even catch it. We don't even catch these things. Like, we wake up and literally are like, I hate work, I hate school. It's like, do you? Like, really? Why? Like, if you hate it, why do you go every day? Why do you do it? You must not really hate it. It just must be hard to wake up. Why is it hard to wake up? Because work and school can be hard, and it's easier to sleep, and I didn't get enough rest. So that might be the basic reality of it, is that, it's a little bit challenging to kind of like use your brain and think and get dressed and be like focused all day. And you're a little bit tired because you didn't sleep enough. But it might not be that you hate what you do, right? It's just hard to kind of continuously be forced to do it. But it's things like that are just very... it's pretty subtle. It's pretty automatic. But just pay attention to all those type of superego and ego responses to what you're trying to do, or in relation to what you're trying to do, because they come up and they're so subtle, they're so sneaky, and they'll keep you from doing things that you can clearly do, things that you've probably already done before, things that you have skills and motivation towards doing that you really would be good at. And when you learn how to do it, you can teach other people how to do it, how to kind of, change their mindsets and address their own mindsets, to be able to do these types of things. Because it can seem so hard when all it really is, most things really just need consistency, knowing how to read, when to, challenge a little more, challenge a little more, make the challenge a little more demanding. Once you're kind of past this phase of like, okay, I learned how to do this skill, I know this, you don't want to necessarily stay at the same level. You want to keep improving once you are doing it, and in complexity of whatever it is you're doing. If it's like you're learning about finances, or working on your finances, or working on exercising, or working on your health, or whatever it is, you want to keep improving it. Once you get the basic part down, you want to keep pumping more skills till that becomes your norm. And then the superego and ego have no place, because you're already doing it. You've been doing it, you're skilled at doing it, and you'll know how to override when you don't feel up to it, because you'll realize at a certain point, it's just in my mind, it's just in my head. This isn't really how I feel about this. So I hope that's helpful. I know I'm taking a lot of breaks in this episode recording because it's at a weird time of day on a weekend, and I'm tired, and I was kind of getting interrupted as well. So hopefully this makes sense. Hopefully it's pretty clear and helpful. But with that, thanks for listening. I'm gonna log off. Bye.